Good afternoon. I am Lindsay Harrell. I am the president of the Hilton Head Island Concours d'Elegance and Motoring Festival. And I want to welcome everyone today to our second event in our Driving Young America Boulevard series powered by Castrol, which has this year become a virtual series. I want to thank everyone who's here today that joined us last week for our first event. It was the Irv Gordon Million Miler Scholarship Award that we worked with together with Castrol and the Volvo Club of America. And it was a great way to kick off this new series. So we started the Driving Young America Boulevard last year at the event in partnership with Castrol and Michelin. And it was really created to provide students with an opportunity to explore career options and scholarship opportunities in the mobility space, and essentially inspire the next generation of automotive enthusiasts. When I called our partners at Castrol and Michelin this year in May, when we decided to cancel this fall's event, it was universally decided that we did not want to see the Driving Young America Boulevard powered by Castrol go away just because the physical event wasn't going to take place this year at the Hilton Head Island Concours. So we shifted gears and we turned it into a virtual series, and we're excited to have this event as the second event on that calendar. The Michelin Junior Challenge Design contest has been a critical part of our program with Driving Young America. We've been working with Michelin on it for the last 4 years, and we've asked the students to design everything from the car that would win Le Mans in 2030 to the car that would win the Hilton Head Island Concours in 2025. And last year we simplified the theme a bit and made it broader and said from here to there. Simply design a car that would get you from your home to the Hilton Head Island Concours. And we've had some amazing entries, some great winners. And this year we wanted to switch things up just a little bit. In the past, we've had the students design for basically themselves. And this year we wanted to give them a specific user to design for that was not them. So we've asked them to design a vehicle for someone who is wheelchair bound. The second interesting twist to this year's contest is that we wanted to give them a specific starting point and a specific end point that their vehicle would have to navigate. So we have asked them to start at the Baron Bliss Lighthouse in Belize and navigate to the Harbortown Lighthouse on Hilton Head Island. And to do that, we want them to be able to traverse 2 of the 3 elements, land, air, and sea. When we came up with the land, air, and sea component to this year's contest, we couldn't have thought of someone better to provide a little bit of inspiration for this year's participants in the contest than the Lane Motor Museum in Jeff Lane. If you've been to the museum, you know that they've got a number of vehicles that either can do that or at least look like they can do that. And ironically, they've got a display on exhibit right now called Wingless Wonders. So we reached out to Jeff Lane and his team at the Lane Motor Museum and asked them to provide a little bit of inspiration for this year's contest. Of course, this tour would not be complete without questions, so I would certainly ask you all to use either the Q&A feature or the chat feature, and we'll try to keep up with questions as Jeff takes us through each vehicle that he's going to share with us today. So please feel free to put those in there and we'll get to them as we get through today's presentation. But without further ado, I want to introduce Jeff Lane, who's been a tremendous supporter of our event, has been our honored collector, has been with us, I think, every year for a number of years, the founder of the Lane Motor Museum. Welcome, Jeff.
Welcome to Land, Air, and Sea. So the first vehicle that I chose in this category is going to be our 1967 Amphicar. And the reason I chose the Amphicar is because it was actually designed to be a car and a boat. So from the very beginning, that's what they wanted to do. It was a very, very successful design. It was built from 61 to 68. They actually made 3,500 copies, which for an amphibious car is far greater than anything else done, except for maybe military vehicles. But what I want to focus on is the design. So as you can see, it looks a little bit like a boat and a little bit like a car. They made it a little bit higher than a normal car because when you're getting in and out of the lake, there could be logs, there could be some rocks and stuff like that. So they had to lift it up. But one of the most important things they did when they built this car is they made it simple. So there's really very few points where something goes through the body and they have to seal it up, right? So the more points that go through the body, the more points you have to seal up, the more chances you get a leak, the more chances you have to sink. So the engine is in the back and the differential's in the back. And so there's 2 propellers that go through the body in the very back. There's the 2 half shafts that go through the body in the back. The engine and transmission and everything, radiator, is all contained like inside the boat slash car. So again, that made it very simple. They use a Triumph Herald engine, so they use an existing engine that was cheaper. The controls are very, very simple. It has a regular 4-speed manual gearbox, just like a car. And then the little white lever next to it is what engages the propeller. So the propellers have forward, neutral, and reverse. So to drive it in the water, basically you would roll down the boat ramp, or you could put it in first gear and drive down the boat ramp. As you get in the water, you would engage the propellers. The throttle is just like a car, and it's like a boat, so you push that to speed up. It's 1-speed propellers. But the other very interesting thing is that it steers with the steering wheel. So the front tires are what steers the car. So it was called the 770 because it went 70 miles an hour on land and 7 miles an hour in the water. Again, we're talking 1960, so that was, in terms of speed on land, that was very adequate. It drives pretty good on land. It's not a sports car, but it drives pretty well. In terms of where things go through the body in the front, they hung all the front suspension underneath the body of the boat slash car. And the only place that something goes through the hull in the front is the steering shaft. So again, it made it super, super simple. It's sloped up a little bit in the front, again, because as you get in and out of the water, you don't want to hit the nose like if there are rocks or something like that. You don't want to hit that on the transition. It even has a hook under the very front there that you can see, like if for some reason you were coming out of the water and it wasn't a boat ramp and it was muddy and you got stuck or something like that, you could hook something on there and pull it up. Again, total simplicity. The back of it is also curved up a little bit for the transition in and out of the water. It floats about where the white marker is here in the water, so you got about 1.5 feet of what we call freeboard. They suggested, like in heavy waves, that you would put the top up, so if water got splashed over the sides, it wouldn't sink it. Also, the fins are not, they're just not cosmetic. They put the fins on the side, so if there was like a little bit of a side wave and it washed over, it didn't get a lot of water into the engine compartment. Very, very simple. Now, one question that most people ask is, what about the doors? Okay, so really, they're pretty typical doors. What they did is they put there's a seal on this side, and there's a seal on the door, so there's really a double seal. But besides that, it's really like a regular door. You close it. The one thing that they did do is they put in a secondary latch inside the car that you pull up once you get ready to go in the water, and that way you could not open the door accidentally, because obviously if you open the door in the water, the car would sink immediately. I've given hundreds of rides in this car, and I've probably taught at least 30 people how to drive it. And everyone's amazed at how easy it is to operate like on land and in the water. It really, again, it only goes seven miles an hour in the water, so it's slow. But again, because the wheels steer it, if it was faster, people say, why didn't they make it faster? Why didn't they make it plain? The reason they didn't do that is because then you wouldn't have any steering, right? So it would have had to been much more complicated to make it faster. And the really intent was if you had an island somewhere and there was no ferry and it was like a half a mile, right? Not very far. I mean, this car is not made to go like 40 or 50 miles in the water. If there was a ferry that stopped working, like going across the river, you could use it for that. If you wanted to go fishing and you didn't need a boat, right? Or you didn't want to mess with a boat and a trailer, and you weren't going to go super far in the lake or a smaller lake, right? You could get in this and do that. So that's my first vehicle. And again, it's just every part of it is just an excellent design, I think, in many, many respects.
Jeff, how long have you all had that as part of the collection there at the museum?
It has been here since the very beginning of the opening of the museum 17 years ago.
Okay. And we've got one question coming in from Sawyer. How heavy is the car boat?
It's about 2,000 pounds.
Okay. What, from your personal perspective, what attracted you to this car?
I always like things that kind of do two things and things that are unique. And, the Amphicar is certainly unique. And I mean, you drive it to the lake and you stop at the gas station and people come running over to look at it. And they want to know if you're going in the lake, and the people follow you to the lake. I mean, we'd have police officers come by the boat ramp to watch it go in the water and things like that. So it's just a uniqueness that drew it to me.
Wonderful. And we've gotten a couple other questions if you have a few more minutes to spend on this car. Does it overheat with the engine all sealed up?
It doesn't, because the radiator's in the back, and as you can see here, there's a lot of fins, okay, to let the hot air out. And there's a fan, you know, that blows through the radiator and blows the hot air out, so it does not overheat.
Okay. And then one more, this is not specific to the Amphicar, but someone's asking, where do you get the cars in your collection from?
So since we're a predominantly European car museum, I would say half of the cars that are here came from Europe. The other half, you know, we bought in the United States, even though they're mostly European cars. So I would say half from Europe and half from the United States about.
Okay. All right, I think we've got one more question coming in. Let's see.
Okay.
Where does the exhaust go out?
So the exhaust comes out of the back, right here, and it's above the water line. So again, you know, they were trying to make this few penetrations in the hull below the water line, okay, that could leak, but the exhaust comes out right here. And the water line is right about where the white line is here. And the other, this over here is actually the bilge pump. So they all leak a little bit. You know, they came standard with a bilge pump.
I imagine when you've taken people out to drive it or to ride with you, you get quite a crowd drawn to it.
You get a crowd on the shore, and actually when you go out in the water, I mean, boats come driving. They want to get a picture of it. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I think we've got our final question on the Amphicar. How many adults would fit in it while in the water?
So it's, you know, it's got 2 bench seats. So they touted it as a 4-seater. I guess if you had 3 smaller people in the back, you know, they would fit, but it's a 4-seater. That's, you know, one of the things, if I were to redesign this car, the way back then is that you can see the seat, the room in the back, your leg room. If they would have made it just 6 inches longer, it'd be a little more roomy. But again, it wasn't made for super long journeys, and it wasn't made to be in the lake all day long. So, you know.
All right, we've got 2 more questions. This is a popular one. How big are the wheels, and will the wheel rim rust?
The wheel rims would rust, but they're painted, so they don't rust. The wheels are 14-inch. They're either 14 or 15.
They're 13.
They're 13. I'm sorry, they're 13-inch.
Okay, and it's similar to how many bodies can it fit? How much weight can the car hold?
I don't know that there's a published weight maximum, but I've had 4 good-sized people in it, so that would be 800 pounds. And it still has a lot of what they, you know, freeboard is the distance between where the water is and the top of the body. So I would think at least 1,000 pounds.
Okay. All right, will you take us to the next car?
Sure. So this is a vehicle called the Auto Canoe. So it'll go on land, and it's also amphibious. So this was built for a competition on the West Coast where you had to build a vehicle. It had to be human powered. It started in a parking lot. You had to go in the water, go out like 100 yards in the water, go around a pylon, come back into the parking lot, and then there were cones that you went through this cone thing. And so it was like a time thing. So this gentleman built this vehicle to compete in the contest. And basically what he did is he took a canoe, as you can see, a typical wooden canoe. He took a bicycle, 10-speed bicycle, turned it upside down. He hooked it to a axle here. You sit in the sling. This is actually the steering here, which goes to the back. And so this is the rudder, like on a boat. And, you know, design-wise, it was real simple. He put this piece of wood in there because, again, this is going to turn the vehicle. So if the water would have went through the wheel easily sideways, it wouldn't help the vehicle turn. Real simple, elegant solution. It pedals pretty easy on land. It's pretty light. You'd be surprised. And in the water, it's really faster than the canoe because the way it propels itself in the water is they just took the regular bicycle wheels, as you can see there, and they put wooden paddles on it. So that's what makes it go in the water. You know, I've driven this in the water a few times. I'm really impressed with it. Again, it steers pretty good on land. One of the most, I guess, not negative things, but obviously coming up the boat ramp, you need the multiple speeds because you're coming up a fairly steep hill. But besides that, it's pretty simple. It's pretty elegant. And it's really, I'd let other people use it, and they're always surprised at how easy it is to pedal on land and in the water.
Have you ever taken that to any events?
We do an Amphicar member ride every year with our members, and we took this one year and let people going in and out of the water with it. Yeah, and everybody really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I would imagine most of these things that you're showing us today are crowd, popular amongst the crowd because they're not things that you see every day on the road or in the water.
Absolutely. Yep.
Have you ever let anybody else go out in that?
Yeah, we've let a few of our members go down the ramp, go around the lake by the boat ramp and come back up. Yes, absolutely.
You make them sign some kind of waiver?
We do, yes.
Yeah. Do you have any videos of either this or the Amphicar in the water?
We do, yes, absolutely.
Are those available through the Facebook page for the Lane Motor Museum?
YouTube.
They're on our YouTube.
Wonderful. Okay, we'll have to share those. All right. Okay, wonderful. Ready for the next one.
Okay, so this is our oldest vehicle in four vehicles. This is a 1919 Layat. Henry Layat was a Frenchman that believed propeller power was going to be the wave of the future. Not just for airplanes, but for cars and buses and every mode of transport. And his big theory was, especially with a car, if it was propeller powered, there's no clutch, there's no differential, there's no transmission, right? So it's lighter, it's simpler, it's safer. Those things are true. Obviously, maybe in a flat place in the 20s where there were no stop signs and very few cars, this would have worked pretty well. But Layat also did airplanes. So this vehicle is a road vehicle. But you can see it has all the pinnings of an airplane. It's a monocoque wood. It's very light, one person behind the other. And Layat actually built this vehicle and built some other vehicles similar to this, and he put wings on them and flew them. Now, this one doesn't fly. But also on top of that, this is the one vehicle that could do all four, is he built pontoons that would go under the wheels, and you could go in the water. And so what you would do is you would roll it up to the lake, or river, whatever. It's fairly light. It's only 600 pounds total. Wheel weight like 150 pounds. You would lift up each wheel and set the pontoon underneath the wheel. Then you would get in the water and you would motor around in the water. And when you came back out, you would take the pontoons off. So this is one vehicle that really kind of did all three. When you're talking about design of air, land, and sea, if you kind of think about it, probably land's the easiest, I would think, right? Sea would probably be the second. Obviously, flying is by far the most difficult. You need more power, you need more control, you need more safety, right? Because obviously, when you're in the air, you don't want something to happen. If something happens in the water, assuming you know how to swim or have a life jacket, it's not that big a deal. It's the same thing with land. But this was Layat's attempt to do a propeller power car. He made about 26 cars in the late teens and early 20s. He was actually a brilliant guy, but a horrible businessman. An interesting story about this car is he sold the first 6, and after he delivered them to customers, he realized he lost money on every single one of them. So he wrote him a letter and said, "I'm sorry, but I sold them for too little. Can you send me an extra whatever?" That was a typical businessman that he was. So he was not a good businessman, but he was a brilliant designer. Any questions on this one?
So you said he designed 26 different cars?
He built 26 production cars.
26.
He did about 3 versions of this.
Okay.
They were very similar, all of them, but 26 total. They built 6 of these, I believe, but this was the first version.
We do have a question coming in. It says, how did the museum acquire the Layat and how much of it was original? Or how much is original?
Yeah, so Layat built 26 vehicles. There's only 2 originals left. So this is a total replica. We actually discovered in his attic about 10 years ago the plans for this vehicle. There were like 300 drawings to build this car, and we were able to build it from the drawings. So this is a total replica, no original pieces.
Okay. How much do you think that propeller in the front weighs?
It's wooden. I would say 3 or 4 pounds. I don't know exactly, but it's very light.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, I think you've got one more car for us to see, one more vehicle for us to see.
Yeah. So this vehicle up here hanging in the ceiling. It's Henry Minier 1000, HM 1000. It's a 1992. Henry Minier was a Frenchman that in the 30s designed home-built airplanes that people built in their garage. He made plans. You bought the plans. You built them. They were unique in a lot of ways. He died in 1971, but his son and nephew carried on the airplane business. So this plane is unique in the fact that most of the Minier planes before that were all home built. This was actually built in a factory. So they built these for the French military, 24 copies. And what they intended to do, the French military, is they wanted a plane that they could tow into battle on a trailer, on a small trailer. And then if there was some kind of conflict and they needed to fly out, they could take it off the trailer and fly away. That was the original intent for this plane. But I picked this plane because it flies and it could really be a car. And the reason for that is because on this side, you can see the wing is down on the side that Rex is showing you now. On the other side, the wing is folded up. So the wing's folded up, obviously, when you towed it on a trailer to make it much narrower, easier to tow. It's the width of a car when the wings are folded up. So we have video of this driving around. It really wasn't made to drive on the road, but it could. There's no reason it can't. It's narrow enough. It's got the power. It steers in the front, so it would be fairly stable on the road, and it's very aerodynamic, so it would probably easily go 30 or 40 miles an hour on the land. And again, this is another design where if you wanted to do it in the water and you did pontoons, it wouldn't be that difficult to make pontoons, take it into the water and set the pontoons under the wheels. You could drive around and then come out of the water, take the pontoons off. So that's another good design.
Yeah, that's definitely something I haven't seen in person before, anything like that one. Now, let me ask, we had a question come in after you moved on.
Okay.
Well, actually, here we go. We've got one coming in for the plane. How many people could fit in the plane?
So the plane is a two-seater,
Okay.
side by side.
And then on the layout, since you said it was a replica, do you know how long it took to build?
It took us 3 years to build it. Yes.
Wow, that's a commitment. That's a project for sure.
Yep.
And what is the principal metal used?
On the layout?
Yes.
So the layout, the body itself is all wood. It's a wood monocoque, like mostly pre-World War I airplanes. The axles are metal. Of course, the engine is metal. The wheels are metal, but you can kind of see the bracing and the thin plywood. So I would say it's half metal and half wood, if I had to guess of the composition.
Okay. And then back to the plane, how do you know what that sold for originally?
I do not know that off the top of my head because they were sold them to the military. That may be available. I honestly don't know.
Okay. I was just curious. So tell us, how long is your Wingless Wonders exhibit on display at the museum?
Until May of next year.
Okay, wonderful. And then you guys are for those of you who don't know, they're located in Nashville, Tennessee. And are you guys currently open for business?
We are open. We're open Thursday through Monday, which means we're closed Tuesday and Wednesday. So open 5 days.
How many visitors do you guys, in a non-COVID year, how many visitors do you all get annually to the museum?
We see about 35,000 per year.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. Okay. All right. Well, it looks like I've got a couple more questions. If you still have a couple minutes, Jeff.
Absolutely.
All right. We have one person asking what's the top speed of the layout?
So the layout, I have driven it. It has no speedometer. I am estimating 60 miles an hour. It's very low drag. It's a Harley Davidson 20 horsepower engine, but I would think it would easily go on the flat 60 miles per hour.
Okay. And then again, on that one, the question is being asked, why did you make some parts out of wood?
Well, we made it the way it was made originally.
Mm-hmm.
And originally the chassis, which is monocoque, is all wood. And then, and even like the aluminum, he even went to make the wheels, put these aluminum hubcaps on here to reduce the drag. And we made those out of aluminum the way they should have been. So in the drawings, it specified the material for each component. I mean, he drew, like I said, there's 300 drawings for this vehicle. He drew like cotter pin holes, specific to this vehicle. The detail's incredible.
Okay, this is a great question, actually. How safe do you feel driving the layout in Nashville traffic?
I feel safe driving it. And the reason for that is it's really, really slow. Okay. It's really, really weird. So anyone that comes near you, sees it. It's not like, oh, I didn't see him. It's also very, very loud. The propeller noise, you could be going 3 miles an hour and it sounds like a jet is right next to you. So people hear it, people see it. I mean, the biggest danger without a doubt is everyone wants to get a picture of it. So if you're going down the road at 10 miles an hour or 20 miles an hour, and it's a two-lane road on each, 2 lane going one way, right? You think, okay, people got room to go by, they're in a hurry. That usually never happens because someone's next to you taking a picture, and so now you're blocking both lanes. That's a little bit, but I understand that. But yeah, I think it's safe as it can be. I mean, it's not like sitting in a strapped-in SUV with airbags and everything, but.
So I think one of the other questions are all of the cars that you've shown us today, are they street legal?
Well, the auto canoe is not, because it's not a car. Riding on a bike lane and things. The layout is, the amphicar is, the airplane is not street legal, again, because it doesn't have taillights and things like that.
Okay. Do you think there's a way that you could design the layout to go any faster? This is one of our students, I believe, asking this question.
Yeah, I think so. That one of the limiting factors of the layout, and I didn't show this, is it steers in the back. Okay, kind of like because most of the layout was an airplane guide too, and most of the airplanes of that era steered in the rear. And of course, that gave you a little better control as you took off. But planes typically took off at about 30 to 40 miles an hour back in that era. But if you change the steering, I mean, that's the limiting factor. I've had this probably going 40, I say it would go 60. If it were to go 60, you would need to be on a runway with nobody around you. The thing about this is I've never driven it where everybody's like right around me, so I got like 3 feet on one side and the curbs on the other side. And you get up to 40 in the back end, it starts to walk around. So if you change the steering to the front, it's a measly point power. And if you did some modern engine, it's a Harley Davidson engine from the teens. If you did a modern engine and doubled the power, I could see it going 100 miles an hour real easy.
Okay. All right. Do you have any vehicles that do all three, air, land, and sea?
We have that. We have a plane that kind of does all of those, but we didn't include it because it's on the ceiling and it's over in the other end of.
Will it be available to see on your website?
Yes.
Okay. And then which one that you've shown us, which one is your favorite and which one is the most efficient?
The most efficient. The pedal powered would be most efficient. I think it's the lightest, right? In terms of, powered by an engine, I would think the layout would be the most efficient because it's the lightest, lowest drag. My favorite, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Really like the amphicar and I like the layout. I mean, I like them all, but I think I like the amphicar the best because you can share that with more people.
Mm-hmm.
You go out to the lake and give people rides and, let people drive once in a while, even driving down the road. I mean, the thing is, I say like with microcars, there's no road rage when you drive a microcar. There's no road rage when you drive an amphicar, right? I mean, if you're at the light and you don't see it turn green right away, nobody's going to beep at you. They're looking at the car and they're enjoying some kind of unique car that maybe they saw on TV at some point in time. So I'd pick the amphicar.
Okay. And then just a couple of other questions. Is the auto canoe easy to drive and use?
It is easy to drive and use. Surprisingly, though, on the land, because it steers in the back, it's a little bit twitchy, but again, it doesn't go very fast and it's got a really long wheelbase, so it's not bad. And in the water, it's much more maneuverable and much easier to propel than I ever anticipated before I used it.
All right, and then if you would recap real quick the years of all of the vehicles you've shown us. I have someone who's asked how old is that, and I'm not sure which car they were referring to.
Okay, the amphicar is 1967. The auto canoe is 2004. The layout is 1919. It's a replica, of course. Mm-hmm. The airplane, the Henry Minier HM-1000, is 1992.
Okay. And then we've got two sort of final questions. I believe this is in reference to the four vehicles you've shown us today, but which is the hardest to drive?
The hardest to drive, without a doubt, it would be the layout because of the steering in the rear. And, you know, the layout, the engine's right in front of you. And your head is just kind of popped up above, so you can't see super well. And on top of that, it's blowing the hot air in your face if it's a hot day, right? And the carburetor's right there. And if it intends to start leaking fuel, which it has a few times, you get a little bit of a gasoline spray in the face. So it's a challenging driver.
Well, I think this last question, which we'll end on, I think this is in relation to your overall collection, but what is the newest car you have at the Lane Motor Museum?
You know, so we have a Tesla, which is a 2014. Yes.
Okay.
Tesla S80. Yes.
Okay. Well, Jeff, I can't thank you enough for joining us and doing this today. I can certainly think that the students who joined us today and who will continue to watch this after the fact, after the live airing, will definitely pull some fun inspiration from what you've showed us today. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your support as always. We're really excited to have you do this with us for the students this year.
My pleasure. Design away.
Well, and I welcome all of you who are joining us today. The Michelin Junior Challenge Design is ongoing. Entries are going to be submitted by, I think it's October 26th. And for those of you who want to join, the finalists will present their entries to our expert panel of judges on November 1st at 2:00 Eastern Time. And that is available through Zoom as well. And the registration link is available on our website, hhiconcours.com. Our judges that will be joining us that day are Morey Callum from Ford, Ralph Gilles from Fiat Chrysler, Vera Park from Jaguar, Jay Ward from Pixar Animation Studios, Michael Simcoe from General Motors, and Ed Welburn, who is retired from General Motors. So we've got a wonderful panel of judges this year to work with our students. And of course, if you're available next week, we've got our Motor Oil and Tire 101 with Michelin and Castrol. That's going to be next Wednesday at 4:00 in the afternoon, October 14th. And thank you again to Jeff Lane and the Lane Motor Museum for your contribution today. Thank you to Castrol and Michelin, our partners. And we look forward to having you join us next week, hopefully, for our 101 event. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful afternoon.